It's on.
Yes.
Thank you very much for reminding me. Okay. All right. Welcome to COMP620 and COMP422 merged together. Oops. Yes, my TA talked about encryption last time, and we're going to continue to talk about encryption. You didn't get through all the slides, so I've got those slides and more, which are all out on Blackboard as they should be. Apologize to everybody, those slides were not on Blackboard last on Monday. There was some confusion amongst the TA and I as to who is going to put it out there. So they're out there now. Okay, today we're going to go into some details of two of the major encryption algorithms, AES and RSA, talk about why they're secure, and then also talk about encryption modes. There's more to just encrypting. You have to use the encryption correctly. Okay, just to make everybody feel good. I'm going to talk about the details of the encryption algorithms. You will not be asked on any test the details of an encryption algorithm, nor will you have to write the encryption algorithms in a program, which happens to be a very popular thing for security classes to do, make you write, but I'm not going to do that. First of all, you should never re-implement the algorithms. They've been implemented by experts who did a really nice job, and they're available for free, so I use them that way. But on the other hand, it's important to know roughly how they work. You got to know what they're doing, what's the difference between this one and that one, and have a rough idea of how these algorithms work. And also, you have to know how to use them. We'll get more into using encryption later on. Okay, and a couple of slides from last time. We're going to talk about encryption, which is very useful in computer security. It is not the end to computer security. It's a tool we can use to get a lot of things done. Confidentiality and integrity really need encryption to get that done. But it's not the only thing. Okay, basic concept of encryption is you got plain text, and plain text can just be a bunch of bytes. It doesn't have to be text. It can be a picture. It can be a document. It can be a program. Bits are bits. And then you run it through the encryption algorithm with a key, and it scrambles it up so it looks completely random. And we call that ciphertext. Ciphertext is the encrypted version of the plain text. And then you do something with it, either put it on your disk or you send it across the network, whatever you like. And at some point, you probably want to decrypt it using a key, and then you decrypt it, and you should get the exact same plain text as when you started with. So the purpose is to convert it to this undecipherable ciphertext in the middle. Well, undecipherable unless you have the proper key to decipher it. Okay, we're going to talk about a major type of encryption algorithm called the substitution permutation ciphers, of which AES and DES are the most popular forms, and those are used a lot. And they're both very similar, and you need to have a rough idea how this works. There are basically three parts to the algorithm. There's a substitution, which takes this bunch of bits and replaces it with that bunch of bits. Permutation, which rearranges the bits, takes a bit from here, puts it over there, just scrambles them up in different order. And then exclusive OR, everybody knows exclusive OR, one of the basic Boolean, exclusive OR the bits with the key. And typically there's multiple stages of this, and you use a different key version. There is a simple version of the concept. Let's see if we can, oh, okay, there we are, yes. You start at the top, and in this case, it's very simple. This is a textbook, 3 levels, but the green K boxes are exclusive ORs. Exclusive OR the bits coming in with the key. And then they have these little substitution boxes. Typically in a substitution permutation algorithm, you have separate substitution boxes that only have something like 4 or 6 bits coming in. And then they rearrange it to the output and just do a substitution. If it's this bit pattern coming in, it's that pattern going out. Just use a table lookup, and they do. And then this mess here, that's the rearranging the bits. This bit goes over there, that bit goes over here. Just so what was bit one goes someplace else. They rearrange. And then you do it over and over and over again. Yeah, well, yeah. But when it's done, it's really scrambled. Here's a more example about those S boxes. The X box is used as substitution. It's pretty simple. Imagine, I'm not sure if that's the official S box, but I got it from someplace where I made it up. You have these inputs, and again, if there's 3 bits, 2 to 3 is 8. There's 8 possible inputs, and therefore 8 possible outputs. And you can see it's just, if it's this value coming in, it's that value going out all the time. And so they just scramble up. So that changes the values. And then, of course, that one showed 3 bits in and 3 bits out. It doesn't have to be 3 in and 3 out. You can have, in this case, 3 in, 2 out, which may mean you're losing information, but you're usually done after you've expanded it and had a one that went 2 bits in and 3 bits out. So, or something similar to that, or some action that expanded the number of bits and then you shrink it down. So again, it's just a substitution. Oh, question. Oh, darn. I forgot to put these on. I forgot to put these as poll questions for the online people, which I strongly apologize for. But you can look at it, think you see if you know what the answer is. But for the live studio answers, I have brand new plastic hard number. So we're going to give you all. I'm glad you don't know it. Where gets one, give the extras. Okay, so while we're getting the Plickr pages, and you all, these are nice and clear. The folks online, I apologize. We'll just have see if you can figure out what the answer is, and we'll tell you what the answer is later and see if you were right. One of the many things you have to do before class is you've got to, okay, not only do I have to write all the slides, get everything ready, but I forgot to put okay. Question, all right. Remember to rotate your thing for the proper way. People online, think about it. And everybody got the answer? Of course, okay, let's do it. Okay. Put yours up there so I can. Yes, you can see it all the way. Oh, don't put your fingers over the pattern because it doesn't quite, it gets confused. All right. Oh, okay. Let's see. Here in class, there were 11 A's, 5 B's, no C's, and 6 D's. Well, the magic may not be incorrect after all, but proper answer is A. It's just a substitution cipher. You have one pattern going in, and that replaces it with a different pattern going out, as if it was a character. Substitution ciphers, you take one character, you replace it with another character. This is you take a bunch of bits, and you replace it with another bunch of bits. Okay. Permutation expansion. Again, permutation just rearranges the bits. The bit that was over here becomes over there. It's just a more or less random, although I'll tell you that none of this is random. The people who invented these algorithms spent a lot of time making sure that it was hard to break. These are not random. Okay, and in this case, you can see there are 6 bits coming in, 8 bits going out, and after that, you could do a substitution that used to. Okay, so there's multiple stages, again, of rearranging it, substitutions, and exclusive ORs. The exclusive ORs are done with a key. There's one key that you put in for this, and then it rearranges the key. The key goes some function every stage. And so each stage, it uses a different function of the key. Sometimes it uses only some of the bits. Okay. Now, the most widely used algorithm for encryption, which was a permutation substitution cipher, is the DES, the Data Encryption Standard. It's old, developed back in '77. I was there, but yeah, by IBM. It was really widely used. Now, it only has a 56-bit key, which is long thought to be far too short. People suspected the NSA of reducing the size so they could decrypt it. And it encrypts 56 blocks of data. There are 16 stages of this substitution permutation algorithm. And it does this thing, we'll show in a picture, it takes half the keys and or half the data, just half at a time. Well, here, picture is easier to show. Okay, we've got 32 bits coming in, splits it in half. The right half becomes the left half of the next stage, and the right half also goes through an expansion box. That's one of those rearrange it into multiple more bits. It goes take 32 to 48, exclusive OR the 48 with the key. Now, DES uses a 56-bit key, so they take the 56 bits and they rearrange it to get a 48-bit key for each stage, a different 48-bit key for each stage, and then exclusive OR it. And they go through some substitution boxes, which are felt to be secure. Well, one of them is thought not to be too secure. And then they do a permutation where they rearrange it back in a different order, and then exclusive OR it with the left bits. The left bit, only thing done with the left 32 bits is they come in and exclusive OR at the right. Now, the right not only goes through this process to become the right, but also goes to the left. And they do this over and over again, switching it back and forth, and eventually you get something that just cannot be understood. The keys, yes, again, they take the key, 56-bit key, split it in half, shift a little bit here, shift a little bit there, rearrange it to get 48 bits, and use that to have that to exclusive OR with the pattern. Okay. Now, it's not all that secure. Way back in 1998, which was 24 years ago, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, they're an organization devoted to computer privacy, and they built a machine, a special purpose machine, to picture of it there, to brute force to find the key for a DES, I don't know, for a known plain text. You put specific plain text. And I think last Monday, we talked about the 3 different attack modes. There's a known plain text where you know what the plain text is. You knew it was this, you know the ciphertext, and you're trying to figure out the key. There's chosen plain text. You can put a particular string in the system and get it out, which may not be as hard as it sounds. You send somebody a message and they encrypt it someplace, and you can find out. And then there's just any plain text. Now, you get some ciphertext and you have no idea what it is. You have to figure it out. So that was it. In 2018, somebody could do it again the same speed, but instead of using a special purpose computer, they just got a bunch of GPUs and NVIDIA video cards that you can buy, and ran it through the GPUs and did it in less than 2 days. Somebody did it in 25 seconds a couple of years ago using a rainbow table. We'll talk. Rainbow table is basically pre-compute solutions and find out. We'll talk about that. So yes, people have also found a couple weaknesses in DES. Differential cryptanalysis is looking at different patterns, differing inputs, and seeing what the output looks like, and seeing if you can find a pattern. Basically, the DES key is too short. And so brute force. Now, I don't intend you to calculate this. I'll give you the answer in just a second. But so they said here that you could shorten it down to 242 to the 47. How long is that? If you do 1 million keys, I just made 1 million up just to get an idea. How long will that take? Think about that. We're not even going to click off it. Think about that. Is that going to take forever? Is that 10 minutes, 10 hours? Well, I did the calculations. That I don't expect you to do that one. I mean, sit there with your calculator, but I got my calculator out. Basically, yes, all right. It's backing up. It's 1 million keys. So 1 million is about 2 to the 20. And so we're going to take 2 to the 47 keys and divide it by 2 to the 20 keys per second, which is really easy. Just subtract the exponents. So you get 2 to the 27 seconds, which is 134 million seconds. And then divide that to get hours, divide that to get days, divide that to get years. And I get about 4¼ years, which is not real quick, but it is eventual. Now, that was assuming you could do 1 million keys a second, which I thought maybe your laptop could handle. But let's just say you're not using your laptop. Let's say you're the government, you have all the money in the world. You want to go out and buy a supercomputer. The fastest supercomputer in the world, which you can look up, has 8,730,112 cores or processors. There's less chips, but they have like 4-way or 8-way chips. And so they're fast. And so you could split this. This is very easy to parallelize. If you parallelized it, you could do all 2 to the 47 keys in 15.5 seconds. So that doesn't keep something very safe. Now, in order to improve this, before DES totally died, they came up with triple DES. Triple DES encrypts it with DES 3 times. They first encrypt it with 1 key, and then decrypt it with, you're going to take the bits that you get and decrypt it with a 2nd key, and then encrypt it again with a 3rd key. Now, turns out, use the same keys, it's worthless. It doesn't do anything for you. If you do, you can use 2 keys. Some people use 2 keys to get 112 bits, which is 2 times 56, and encrypt with the, I think it's 1, you use key 1, key 3, key 2, key 1 again, or you can just use 3 different keys, which works best. Unfortunately, it doesn't work very well. You think maybe double encryption. I remember looking at a website in preparedness, they talk about, well, double encryption, just encrypt it twice. You think that would make it, take 2 to the 47 times 2 to the 47? No, it just makes it twice as difficult. So it goes 2 to the 47 becomes 2 to the 57 keys. Instead of being like twice that, it's just 1. So it just becomes 2 to the 58th, which is 2 to the 57 plus 1. So it's hardly an improvement. NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, government agency that helps set up standards for many things, including computers and security, has deprecated DES and triple DES for new applications 5 years ago. And next year, nobody's supposed to use it. It's just not secure. Now, several years ago, 2000, 23 years ago, they started to realize that just DES is not going to cut it. It's not secure. It had some problem, and then cut it down from 2 to the 57 down to 2 to the 47, which I realize is, that's 2 to the 10. That's a million. No, it's 1,000. Yeah, 1,000 times. Made 1,000 times faster, but still, it took 4.25 years to do it. So they put out a contest. They went out and said, "Hey, who can come up with a better algorithm?" And these folks, Ryman and Diamond, you can guess where Reindahl comes, came up with the Reindahl algorithm. And it was up in Belgium. Nevertheless, the United States decided to select that algorithm. I thought they would never select an algorithm made by somebody in another country, but they did. And it's now available without any, it's has no patents or is free for public use. And everybody's using it. It encrypts blocks of 128 bits and has keys that are, you have keys of different lengths, 128, 194, or 256. And so it uses different size keys. If you want to be like really secure, use 256. If you keep it sort of secure, 128. It takes the 128 bits of input and arranges it in a 4x4 byte. You don't have to do anything to arrange the 4x4 bytes. You just take 16 bytes and you say, this is, imagine it's 4x4, because eventually you encrypt it, it gets all scrambled up. But when you decrypt it, it comes out the same way it was. So however you put the bytes in, that's the way they'll come out. Okay. Now it is a substitution permutation cipher, like we talked about. And depending on how many or the number of rounds that are used depends on the key size. And only there's 10 rounds for 128-bit keys. Basically, the concept is if you didn't think it really had to be absolutely positively secure, you can go the fast way with a shorter key. Or you can go 14 rounds with 256-bit key, so it's more secure yet. All right, and we're going to go over all the pieces of this. Again, you ought to know roughly how this operates, but you don't need the absolute details, because I'm not going to ask the absolute details on the test. I might ask, like, what is the substitution permutation algorithm? Okay, so, well, let's look at the pictures we got here. Okay, first thing it does is it takes the key and your bytes and exclusive orders them together to make another stage. So that's pretty simple, exclusive order. Then we have a substitution. We have another S box, just like we saw the S box. They have 8-bit to 8-bit S boxes. And there was a problem, a couple of the S boxes with DES, and they've learned from the earlier mistakes. And so these S boxes so far appear to be pretty solid. And so they do that. Then we have a 4x4 array where they shift the rows. the first row doesn't shift at all. The second row does a circular shift by 1. The next one circular shift by 2, and the third one circular shift by 3. So it kind of rearranges the rows. And then they do polynomial arithmetic, taking a column. So you have 4 values, and they do polynomial arithmetic to get another 4 values. Because each of the output 4 values depended on the input 4 values, and that gives you another 4. So they really do this, they do that, they turn around, spin, and do this. So it's got all sorts of stuff. Turns out you can do this pretty fast. They can do most of this stuff with table lookup. So you take this value, look it up. Obviously, a substitution is a table lookup, and you can do the other things by table lookups. And they have the Intel processor and the AMD processor both have an instruction that does a AES round as one stage. So you have to call that instruction 10 times or 14 times, depending on the keys you're using, but it does the processing for you, all the rearrangement. Turns out hardware, of course, is trivial to rearrange the order of the bits. Just this wire goes here, this wire goes there. It takes no transistors at all. You can think about writing a program that rearranges the bits. Man, it's a little sloppy. Yeah, you can do it, it's just a little sloppy. But it works really well on hardware. AES is also fast, it's faster than DES. And so far, nobody's found a way to break it. At least they haven't told us how. They did find a minor weakness that that'll allow an attacker to defeat it 4 times faster than trying all possible combinations of 256 bits. Now, Snowden, if you remember Snowden from a few years ago, was an NSA guy who put a whole bunch of stuff out on, I think it was WikiLeaks, and had all sorts of documents. Some of the documents said that NSA was looking into how to defeat AES. Well, I should hope they are. I mean, national security agencies in charge of keeping, they have 2 missions. 1, to keep the US data safe, and 2, to look at other people's data. And so if other people were going to be encrypting things with AES, they'd like to know how to decrypt it. Also, if America's encrypting things with AES, they'd like to know if there's a way to defeat it so they could try to make sure that we're keeping our stuff safe. So of course they are. That's their job. Well, if they can make it 4 times faster, what is 1/4 256? Arithmetic problem. Got your calculators. We can click on this one. Sorry, folks, they're online. Think about it. No fair using your calculators, but you can think about that. Okay, let's. Already got that. Shouldn't be too hard. All right, get your cards up and let's go. Oh, get your card. Okay, straighten up your card. There we go. Okay. Yes. Yeah. On an angle doesn't cut it. Oh, these plastic cards work really well. Yeah, okay. We have a 7 for A, 8 for B, 7 for D. Nobody thought C was the right answer. Oh, okay, the answer is in fact D. Because let's think about this for a minute. 2 to the 256 divided by 2 to the 2. 4 is 2 to the 2. And when you divide with exponents, you just subtract the exponents. So it's 256 minus 2 is 254. The answer is D. Are you good with that? Got a little tricky math? Okay. All right. Do that without a calculator. All right. That was the AES algorithm, which is a symmetric key algorithm. That is, the key to encrypt and the key to decrypt are exactly the same. There are other algorithms where the key to encrypt and the key to decrypt are different. You encrypt with one key, decrypt with another key. RSA is the most popular one. There's Diffie-Hellman and some others. Also, one nice thing with the RSA algorithm is you can go either way. You can encrypt with the public key and decrypt with the private key, or you can encrypt with the private key and decrypt with the public key. Works both ways, which we'll use later on. Okay, again, it was invented by 3 guys, Ravish, Shamir, and Elman, RSA, back in '77. You might know, if you're a graduate student taking algorithms class, COMP620. Rivest is one of the authors of the algorithms textbook. So he probably knows something about algorithms, I'd guess. Okay, so and I think the NSA also developed, or excuse me, yeah, the NSA, National Security Agency, also developed the algorithm in 1973, but they weren't going to tell anybody because the NSA doesn't tell things like that. And so it's used, it's the most commonly used public key algorithm. There are a couple others, but this is the one that's used very well. And they had a patent on it for a while, but their 17 years ran out. And now it's freely available, so anybody can use it. And it's used a lot. Here's the basic concept. Well, and many of the algorithms use this basic arithmetic. They take the message, and you can think of the message as just a bunch of bits. And since it's a bunch of bits, you can do arithmetic with a bunch of bits. Think of it as a number. It might represent characters or whatever, but think of it as a number. They raise it to the power e. Yes, E, D, and N are parts of the keys. So those are, I'll explain in a minute how you get those, but those are parts of the keys. So you take the message and you raise it to the power E, mod N. That's modulus of remainder by this value N. And then C is in ciphertext. So you take the message, run it through this relatively simple arithmetic function, and you get the ciphertext, and then you convert it back to the message in a very similar way, just ciphertext raised the D mod N. That's it. Now it turns out, if you take the message text, which could be pretty large bunch of bits, and you raise it to a very large bunch of bits, it's going to be a huge number, right? And then, but mod N, you can do the mod N multiple times. So you can, and again, M to the E just, well, here, let's get some, it's just M times M times M times M, E times. I guess very big. You can go M times M mod N, get the result times M mod N, and keep you doing mod N, so you keep the number, well, from 0 up to N minus 1 all along the way. And they also, they got fast ways to do this, which we will not bother to worry about, just say that somebody managed to figure it out. Okay. All right. Now, in public key or the RSA algorithm, here's how you make the keys. You have to have two keys, a private key and a public key. And so you start by picking a couple prime numbers, big prime numbers, usually really big prime numbers. And then you multiply them together to get the value N. And N, of course, was that N that we see here. That's how you get N. All right, now that you got these big, then you subtract 1 from P, subtract 1 from Q, multiply together, and you get something called the totem of N. And then, okay, now that we've got this magic totem number, we choose an E. E is one, again, there's E and D that we need to figure out here. And you pick an E whose greatest common divisor between E and the totem of N is 1. In other words, they don't divide each other. There's no other number that divides them both except for 1. Okay, so that gives us E. And then you find the inverse of E with for mod N. In other words, some number D, so D times the inverse of D times Z equals 1. That's the inverse. Of course, this is mod N, so remainders. So as you get too big, it goes back to 0. Just, it's like a big circle if you think about it that way. So you find that, and now we've got it. N and E are the public keys, so you can tell everybody N and E, and then to decrypt, again, you use D. So everybody knows N, and everybody knows E. D is the secret. D is the secret you don't tell anybody, and with that number, you can then decrypt what was encrypted. Here I've got some numbers. I just made up these numbers and tried it. Tried not to get too big. In the real world, of course, you use much larger numbers but I just picked some prime numbers that were not terribly large. So P and Q, multiply them together and get an N like this, 11,413. Then I compute the total, I subtract 1 and get this number. Then I find an E, which has no divisors between this E and the total, 11,200. And that 3,533 works. Again, it doesn't have to be that number. There are other numbers that will work. That one happens to work, and so I used it. Now you get the invert of that, mod 11,200, and you get this number. In other words, 6,597 times 3,533 divided by 11,200 has a remainder of 1. Okay, so try it out. I did this just to make sure it works. You got an M, raise that to this number E, mod this, and you get this number, and then you invert it, and sure enough, you get back to the text. Okay, so that's kind of how it works. Okay, so typically they pick really big prime numbers P and Q. Something because the key lengths for, oh, question, yes, sir. The number exactly, no. You don't have to know exactly how to do it, but you have to have some idea of why is it secure, which you're going to get to in just a few. Why do we care? Well, part of you going to care because it's part of it, but I will not ask you to figure. I won't ask you to do that in the test. Okay, no, there's no reason to know that. Somebody wrote the algorithm. They got wonderful implementations that work really well, but no, you don't have to do that. But you ought to know why is it secure? Because you got two big prime numbers that you're multiplying together and hard to unmultiply. That's important to know. Thank you. That's a good question. Make sure everybody's not so frightened. All right. Okay, so no, we're not going to do that again. We're just going to, but you do need to know there's two prime numbers, and they're very big prime numbers, because if you have, say, a 2048-bit key where n is 2048 bits, well, that's you get by multiplying two prime numbers that are about 1024 bits. That's a big number. That's a really huge number. But you multiply together and you get this, you know. Now, it should be noted, since we're doing this mod n, that the m, the ciphertext, is going to be somewhere between 0 and 1 less than n. Okay, so that's kind of important because, yeah. Yes. And the ciphertext can be up to log 2 n bits. Okay. Oh, question, which would be a clicker question. All right, think about this online. I apologize, but think about it. See if you know the answer. The fastest, if you have a system that's encrypting a lot of data, which algorithm will encrypt it the soonest? Okay. Yes. Or not. Oh, well, the answer is not E, which is good because it's not on your card. All right. Everybody got it? Okay, hold it up. Don't put your fingers over the. All right. Go back, get you. Yep. Okay. Oh, wow, they're all popping up. Ah, yes, I can get yours way in the back. All righty. And 2 A's, 9 B's, 4 C's, and 9 D's. Okay, there's only 4 C's, which is too bad because C is the answer. Yes. Okay. First of all, okay, B, RSA. RSA is slow. The RSA algorithm is slow. All that multiplication stuff. In fact, it's about an order of magnitude slower than AES. AES is a little bit faster than DES, not wildly fast, but a little bit fast. When they built AES, one of the criteria was it should be easy to implement, so it'll run fast. Because if you ever have these servers where HTTPS, where they're encrypting things, every bit you set, after it gets set up, every bit you send across is encrypted. They gotta have things that encrypt fast. So you have a server that's getting hit with thousands of requests a second. It's doing all these encryptions. And on many web servers, most of the CPU time goes to encryption and decryption. Okay, so AES is the fastest, and the RSA is really slow. That's important. We'll talk about that later. Again, how fast? Oh, who cares? But it's important to know that AES is much faster than RSA, much faster, order of magnitude faster. For encryption and decryption? For both, yes. Because, again, they're almost the same. Remember, AES, well, yeah, for both algorithms, encryption and decryption look about the same. Okay. Here's another example, RSA, which this one I made up, and I had to use my Java large decimal number algorithm to get that big number. So pick the number to make a huge number. The only thing is you end up with a C that's big. It's larger than M. M was just this C, but the ciphertext is going to be that big. It can be up to 1 less than N, because mod N gives you, if you have like mod 5, you get numbers 0 to 4. So mod, that huge number, is up 0 to 1 less than that. So the ciphertext becomes big, even if the text is short. Okay, No, you got big keys. They have to use big keys because the bigger the key, the harder it is to brute force, the more options you have. Basically, if you have n bits, it's sort of like you have 2 to the n keys to guess. If you're lucky, of course, you get it about half. On average, you'll find it halfway. I mean, if you're really, really unlucky, it won't be any of the keys until you try that very last one. Or if you're really lucky, it's the first one you try. On average, it's halfway. Now, asymmetric or public key or RSA algorithms require a mathematical relationship between the keys. So not every bit string will work. On AES and DES, you can just get a random number and any bunch of bits will work as a key. Yes, again, DES keys are 56 bits, way too small. AES uses much bigger 128 or 256-bit keys. And in AES, any random number will work. Now, I'm told if you have a key that has a 17-bit run of zeros or a 17-bit run of ones, then it's not a particularly strong key. Well, do some arithmetic. That happens every 128,000, one in every 128,000 times. Now, I don't know if most of these things just pick a random number. They don't care about it. So, because it doesn't happen very often, and so on. Now, RSA keys are longer, 512, 1K, or 2K. And they have to be longer because it takes that algorithm we talked about to make them. You just can't use any bits. And I think my TA was a little bit confused and said, oh, of course, this long key is the strongest. Well, not really. 256-bit keys. Turns out, let's think about 2K bits. That's two numbers that are 1K, or 2 to 1024 multiplied together to get an end of that size. Well, when you have a number that's 2 to the 1024, that's a big number. And by that time, prime numbers become pretty rare. There's an algorithm for estimating how many prime numbers occur, in case you ever want to look. I did look it up, and I did some algorithm. It turns out when you get numbers that are about 2 to the 1024, only 1 in 709 numbers are prime. So you don't find primes too often because you've had so many numbers to multiply it by. So most of the numbers are composite numbers. So to find the next prime takes, there's a bunch of empty space in there that you can't use for good keys. So you can use all 2 to the 256 possible combinations. Some of them are better than others, but no, you cannot use all 2 to the 2048 possible combinations of RSA. Oh, all right. Questions about RSA and AES. Again, you don't have to know the details of how it works. You have to know roughly how. You have to know that, oh, you gotta know that RSA is slower. You got to know that it involves multiplying 2 large prime numbers together. That's what makes it strong. AES has the stages. That's important to know. The details aren't important. Okay.
Back. I have one quick question.
Yes.
So just to make sure I have it right, when it comes to encryption and decryption, AES is faster than DES.
That's correct. And that's
okay.
Faster than RSA.
Got it.
Okay. AES is not a lot faster than DES, just a little bit. Particularly now, though, that most of your popular processor chips have AES built in. Oh, it's a lot faster. But yes, an RSA is slow, which we'll talk about later when we talk about hybrid encryption, where they start with RSA and then switch to AES because it's faster. Okay, backdoor encryption backdoors. When algorithms are developed, some people have thought, wouldn't it be nice to have a way for somebody to decrypt anything? In other words, you have your key and you can send messages to her, and she can send messages to you, but somebody might like to be able to decrypt anything. Typically, of course, this is governments. Governments are always a little wary of encryption because they don't know everything then. So a backdoor, again, allows a third party, somebody else, to decrypt it. This can be done by 2 big ways. One is have some sort of special super key that decrypts anything. Or every time you make an algorithm with a key, you give somebody the key and they put it in their database. And so later, if they had to look for something, that decrypt your stuff, they'll go to the database, get your key, and then they can decrypt it. So, and why would you want to do this? Well, in business, it may be that the administration might think that they want to be able to decrypt stuff, and there's reasons for that. Imagine you have an employee that has the stuff decrypted, or excuse me, has the stuff encrypted on their laptop or their desktop machine because they're a good employee. They don't want anybody to find out what company secret you have. And then he gets run over by a bus. Well, stuff can be lost forever if you can't decrypt it. So you might like some, you know, the CFOs, chief, or not, well, chief security officers, CSO, might have the super key, and they can go out and decrypt it to find out what he has. And of course, governments always want this. They'd like to be able to look at your stuff. Governments tend to be that way. Way back in 1993, which is, well, that's like 30 years ago, isn't it? The government developed this algorithm, skipjack encryption that was on the Clipper chip. And that was supposed to go into secure phones. They're going to put it into secure phones that would take the analog value, convert it to digital, encrypt it, ship it across the line, and then when it got there, decrypt it. And you could also use for data, but they kept talking about putting it into skipjack phones. And the algorithm was initially classified. We're going to tell you what it was. And it had a backdoor. It was built in intentionally so that the government could decrypt it if it felt it needed to decrypt yourself. So if somebody was using skipjack to sell weapons or do some sort of terrorist activity, that they could break in and find out what you said. That was not very popular with people. Turns out that almost nobody wanted an algorithm that the government could get into. No, they had several ways they were going to do this. They thought, well, we'll split the key into parts, basically exclusive OR. So yeah, somebody has one part of the key, somebody else is the other part of the key, and you had to exclusive order them together to get that workable key. And you might try to find two trusted government agencies. Now, there's a challenge, but one of them might be the Supreme Court, and then some other agency in another division of the government that if you got a court order saying, I need to know what to talk about, they'd give you the keys. Well, that was the plan. It didn't fly. Nobody believed them. So if people are skeptic about the government, it's been that way for a while. All right, so that didn't go, and skipjack never got anywhere. Nobody wanted to do that because they didn't feel backdoors secure. But what was that? 7 years ago, you might remember there was a terrorist in California. They shot some people, and it was couples, a man and a woman. They shot a bunch of people. I don't remember why they felt necessary to shoot people, but they did, and they thought that they had information on the man's Apple iPhone. And they said, "Oh, Apple, help us look at his iPhone because it's encrypted. It doesn't have encrypted. You can put a key in, and then it'll decrypt it. Otherwise, you can't get in, and it won't let you." And if you guess 10 times and get wrong, you do 10 wrong guesses, the iPhones erase everything. They said, "Oh, somebody's trying to break in," so they automatically erase all the files. Well, the FBI asked Apple to give them the ability to get in, and Apple said, "No, we're not going to do that because we don't trust you, and yeah, you don't have a need." And of course, the FBI went to courts, and they battled it out, and it eventually became moot point because somebody, a third party, said, "Hey, you can do it like this." And okay, so the FBI did it, found out there was nothing there to find, but Apple refused to give them the information. That led to some legislation. That was in 2015. Shortly after that, and then again, there was the Secure Data Act, which was out there to say, no, you can't require companies to make a back door. You can't require them to tell you how to decrypt. Now, it's very easy to say there is no back door. I mean, if you use something like AES, which we don't believe there's a back door, and just use AES encryption, then Apple can say, we don't have a back door. We can't tell you how to get it. Too bad. But they tried it. Now, I don't know what happened to the Secure Data Act. I Googled around looking for it. I mean, I got a copy of it back in 2018, but I couldn't find whether it died in committee or whatever happened to it. There's the Safe Data Act, not to be confused with the Secure Data Act, which is completely different. But okay, so there were people who were concerned. Probably not too concerned because it didn't become law. Okay, so we've talked about symmetric encryption, of which AES and DES are examples. Again, symmetric encryption uses the same key to encrypt and decrypt. Everybody who uses it has to know the key. So if I'm going to send you a message encrypted with AES, I have to tell you the key, otherwise it's not going to, you won't be able to decrypt it. So everybody uses the same key to encrypt and decrypt, and it's very fast. Now, what is that good for? So if I want to communicate myself to somebody else, we can share keys by whatever method we share keys. We'll talk about hybrid encryption, share keys. The government shares keys by putting it in a diplomatic pouch and having a Marine take it to the embassy in the other place. But you have to share keys. They have to get the other side has to get a key. Now, if somebody in the group, if we have a group of people who know the key, they can send messages to the whole group, but they can't send messages to an individual unless they have a separate key for every individual. It works really well if you want to save something for yourself, because you don't have to send your key to you. If you make up a key, remember it, and then you can just use it for encrypting something for yourself. The difficulty that I have, again, if you want to communicate to a wide group of people, every pair of people who are communicating have to have a separate key. Can be, you get into key management then. Okay, asymmetric, of which RSA is the leading, but not the only algorithm out there. In that case, everybody knows the public key, and we will talk next week about how you manage to get that public key around to everybody. Only one person knows the private key. This works really well if you well, and it's not as fast. But again, we say not as fast. I mean, we're talking about computers that are really fast. Your laptop is a fast computer, and it can, what it can do in the blink of an eye, it hardly matters if it can do it in half the blink of an eye. What do you use that for? Well, again, if everybody wants to send a message to a leader, you can look to a public key. Everybody can send it. Nobody can do it. Even if a bunch of people know the public key, if they encrypt something, they can't decrypt it. If they have the public key, you have to have the private key, which only the leader. And also, you can do it the other way around. The leader can encrypt something with the private key, send it to everybody, and they can decrypt it if they have the public key. Well, anybody with the public key can decrypt it. We'll talk about how you use that later on. Okay, this is kind of sloppy if you're going to save something for yourself, because you have to remember not only the key you're going to use to encrypt it, you have to have a separate key to decrypt it. It's easier to have one key, remember, encrypt it with that key, you decrypt it with that key. Bingo. What else do we have? And again, if you're sending messages to the group, anybody can encrypt messages and send it to the group and decrypt it. All right. Now, why is this strong? RSA is secure because it's difficult to factor large numbers. That is, if you have a number, you want to find out which numbers can you multiply together to get that number. And we start with prime numbers. So if you have P and Q are large prime numbers, the only numbers that divide N are P and Q. Nothing else does. And since they're very, very large, it's difficult to find out what it does. I did some arithmetic. I went out there and found out. Now, if you want to find out what are the factors of a number, what numbers, you don't, some simple thing is that, well, all the numbers that divide from, one to that number, check them all and see if any of them divide except for one. That's the very simplistic way to do it. You don't need to try all the numbers. You only need to try prime numbers, because all numbers are divisible by prime numbers. If it's divisible, if the number is divisible by 2, it's divisible by 3, it's obviously divisible by 6. You don't have to worry about 6, you got 2 and 3. You only check the primes. And then you don't have to check all the numbers. You only have to check up to the square root of the number. Because if it's divisible by a number bigger than the square root, then it's the square root, that number times the number that's smaller than the square root. So if you try all the numbers up to the square root. And then there aren't that many primes as you get up there. To be exact, well, exact, to be approximate, there are n divided by the natural log of n primes. for a number. And so you do this. I did that. So 2048-bit key, I did some arithmetic and found out it's 10 to the 306. 10 to the 306 is a big number. That's going to take a long time to guess that. Now, what about quantum computing? People tell you that, oh, they might break this with quantum computing. The AES algorithm is believed to be quantum resistant. People have studied it carefully, and it doesn't appear that you can break the AES algorithm with quantum computers. On the other hand, theoretically, it's possible to break the RSA algorithm with a quantum computer. You can use a quantum computer to factor the large number in a much faster time. But your instructor doesn't believe it. Your professor does not believe in quantum computers. I know we have the quantum computer study group or institute here at A&T, and faculty members have been making a lot of money writing papers, written millions of papers on AES. They've gotten billions of dollars from agencies to work on quantum computing. I mean, it's really kept us employed. And you can get lots of money from all sorts of agencies to work on quantum computing. But being an old guy, see the gray beard, they've been working on quantum computing for a long time. It's not like it's new, it's like 40 years old or something, maybe older. And it's still not there. It's still just beyond their grasp. They keep telling you, you can read any paper on quantum computing, they'll tell you, we're almost there. It's always, we're almost there. And you just have to figure out this one last problem, and we're almost there. We're going to get it anytime now. For the last 40 years, they've been saying that. Well, it turns out there are reliability problems. Quantum computing, if you look at quantum computers, yes, your qubits can either be a 0 or a 1, and it's both, but it has an accuracy issue. And it turns out, so many people believe, there's this article here I read, and there's many, many other articles that say, yeah, can't get there from here. That theoretically, the number of errors that you're going to get in any algorithm is going to be big enough that your answer is worthless. So again, I could be wrong. It's been known to happen once or twice, but that's my opinion. So I'm not worried about quantum computing, because I don't think you'll ever see one. Oh, by the way, your quantum computers, there's one. Ooh, look at that. I mean, if you can make a multi-million-dollar machine, it better look cool. They are cryogenic. They have to be cooled to near absolute zero. It's not going to work for your laptop. They are pretty interesting, and I don't think they exist. Creep cartoon. Okay, so that's my opinion, and maybe next year they'll go. By the way, with all the talk about quantum computers being so fast, nobody's ever run an algorithm on a quantum computer that ran faster than a traditional computer, ever, yet. Maybe they'll figure it all out next month and we'll have wonderful quantum computers. But so far they haven't, and they've been working at it for a long time. I don't think they ever will. Okay, now, going back to real world computing, now we have these algorithms. We have AES and RSA. To use a good encryption algorithm, not only do you have to have a good, strong encryption algorithm, but you have to use it properly, you have to use it correctly to get secure systems. Most of these algorithms use blocks of data. Depending on AES uses 128-bit block of data. That's 16 bytes. DES uses 8 bytes. RSA uses big. It's, it depends on the keys. Depends on how big the key is. But you can get to 255 bits, which is a whole bunch of bits. Now, the standard simplistic way to do it is called the electronic cookbook method, ECB. I don't exactly know where they got that name, but that's the name that they use, ECB, electronic cookbook mode. And it's very simple. For each block of plain text, you run it through, let's just assume it's the AES algorithm for now. It could be whatever your favorite encryption algorithm is, it doesn't matter. You put it through the AES proper key, and you get what the ciphertext. Bingo. And the next block, you do the same thing. So the first block, and the second block, the third block, and you get ciphertext. Thing is, if one of the blocks of plain text is the same as another block of plain text, then that block of ciphertext is exactly the same as the other block of ciphertext. Well, it has to be. If it wasn't, you couldn't decrypt it. So it turns out that that could be a problem. I like this picture where they've got the Linux penguin there. original image, and then they decrypt it with electronic cookbook mode, and you can see each block of the image. So, it messed it up, so it looks, but you can see the image, you can see the penguin in there, because all the black stuff, the black, the white, this, and so if you have repeating blocks of data in your plain text, then those repeating blocks of data will appear in the ciphertext. So you have identical blocks of ciphertext, and that can lead to very easy, well, much easier decryption. I wouldn't say really easy, but much easier decryption. So there are several ways to get around for that. Basically, all the others are chaining mode, a way of chaining the blocks together, so that the first block of plain text or ciphertext is used to compute the second block, which is used to compute the third block, and so forth. So it all chains along, which, by the way, if any one of them gets an error somewhere along the way, then every block after that is wrong. But hopefully you can recover from errors. Most of the networks are pretty reliable these days, assuming you have all sorts of check bits and hashes, and we'll talk about those later on. Okay, so here's the cipher block chaining mode. As you can see from here, we take the plain text and you exclusive OR it with the ciphertext from the previous block. Then you encrypt it with your favorite encryption algorithm using the key, and that gives you the ciphertext. You take that ciphertext and you exclusive OR the next block of plain text and so forth. So each block of plain text is exclusive OR with the ciphertext from the block before. And of course, you can't know what the ciphertext from the previous block is, because that requires decrypting it, which requires having the key. So it's said to be pretty secure. So again, if one block is the same as another block of plain text, the ciphertext is going to be completely different. So it does not repeat blocks of ciphertext from similar blocks of plain text. Now, each block of plain text is exclusive ORed with the ciphertext from the previous block. The first block has to be exclusive ORed with something. So you use what's known as an initialization vector. Initialization vector is just a bunch of random bits. Use a random number generator, and you make a bunch of random bits, and you use that. But the person who decrypts it has to have the same initialization vector. If you look in some of the examples you see online, they just make a random number, and then they encrypt with it, decrypt with it. That's because they have that initialization. Typically what's done is the initialization vector is put in the beginning of the file that you send or that you store. And so when you read it back in, you read that initialization vector and use that. Okay, so here's the decryption is very similar. Again, you use the same initialization vectors you use to decrypt. Take a ciphertext block, decrypt it with your whatever algorithm you're using in the key, and you exclusive OR that. So again, that ciphertext keeps going back and decrypting. So it's pretty straightforward. But again, every block of plain text depends on all the blocks of the ciphertext before it. So 2 blocks of plain text produce different blocks of ciphertext and the other way around. As I mentioned, the initialization vector is basically a random number. Doesn't have to be secret. You don't have to encrypt it. It should be random. Typically, every time you encrypt something, you use a different initialization vector. Why? Yeah. So if you're sending data back and forth using the same key, that's great. You can use the same key, but every message you send has a different initialization vector. So if you're sending messages back and forth to an HTTPS site, you've got a key that you're using, and you send a message and another message, another message, another message, then it's okay. You can use the same key all the time, but you need to use a different initialization vector every time. The nice thing about that is if you send the same data twice, if the initialization vector is randomly different, then the ciphertext for that same block will be different. And I might mention here that you don't want the initialization vector to get messed up, either accidentally or intentionally. So you ought to protect it with a MAC, which we'll talk more about next week. There are other forms of this block mode. Here's the cipher feedback block. This is a little different. Basically, in this case, you take the initialization vector, encrypt that, and then exclusive OR the result with plain text. That gives you a ciphertext. You take that ciphertext and you encrypt it, exclusive OR. So all the time here, we're just taking the ciphertext, scrambling it up to make even more random bits, and encrypting it with the plain text. And you can then undo that in a very similar way. Now, it's useful if you can do this in parallel. if you have multiple processors, with the block stream sort of stuff, you have to know the first block of ciphertext used to compute the second block, used to compute the third block. So when you get around to the 10,347th block, you got to know all the previous stuff, and you have to do all those calculations before you can get there. It'd be nice if you could parallelize it. So they came up with a parallelizable system here. This is the Gallows counter mode, GCM. The GCM is easily parallelizable. Let's just take a look at this. Take the initialization vector. The initialization vector becomes a counter. Think of that, it's just a big bunch of bits, but you can think of it as a number. You increment it by 1, and that is the first counter. Then you take that counter and you encrypt that, then exclusive OR the encrypted version of the counter with the plain text, and that gives you a ciphertext. Then you take that one counter and you encrypt it again, and you do the same thing. Now, this shows it as encrypting, of course, goes from block 3, block 4, block 5. But you don't have to encrypt it one, increment. This block, instead of going increment it once, twice, you could just say add 2 to it. The next block, add 3, add 4. When you get the block 10,347, you just add 10,347 to the initialization vector, and that gives you your counter, which you didn't. So you can do that very easily in parallel. And that's the advantage of that one. This is the algorithm that Zoom uses when you have encrypted, let's get the key. Okay, you haven't seen the rat and the rabbit yet. A couple of semesters ago, I did the class all online, and the rat and the rabbit showed up every now and again, the remarks about the lecture, but you ever notice what good is that password for Zoom? Everybody goes, oh, the university wants you to use a password to make it secure. Oh, bullshit. Everybody mails the password with the ID number. If you press the Zoom button to say, send the key, it automatically creates an email with the password and the Zoom ID there at the same time you send it to somebody. So anybody gets the ID, they'll have the password. It's not secure. It makes you think it's secure. And that's 90% of the games. These companies come up with this stuff, and they want you to think that it's secure. And they've got really secure, this was it, GCM algorithm is really secure and fast, but it's pointless if everybody knows the key. Okay, they've done early today. That's it. Read chapter 11 for key management. I remind you that Monday is Labor Day, so we'll not do any labors. We will take the day off, and there'll be no class. This class won't meet. So if you show up here on Monday, you'll be all by yourself. Likewise, online, there'll be no classes. So that's it. Anybody have any questions? Online, any questions? Well, that's it. We will. So long. See you next time, but not Monday. And I think we'll end this.